here with Mr. John Lee, and we're at a Korean barbecue. We're trying, I know how to say sogogi, but I'm sure there's another name for the steak that we have.
It's basically a marinated beef, thin slices of, with soy, a bit of onion, sesame oil, of course, and a little bit, depends on the recipe, but this one probably doesn't have it, but sometimes people add a little bit of rice wine vinegar. But overall, this is your classic Seoul-style barbecue. We got a little bit of East, a little bit of Western influences. What you're trying, obviously, Brian, now is the beef, which is fantastic. It's cooked over the open flame here at the table, which is fantastic for freshness. People always complain, why am I paying so much if I got to cook the food myself? Well, because this food doesn't really have a lifespan beyond a few minutes after it's cooked, so it's best to enjoy it when it's great. And if you can see,
this is what it looks like.
oh yes, fabulous. Look at that with the mushrooms, great.
So you live in one Koreatown.
I do.
We're in North Koreatown. Not
Correct.
as in North Korea, but Koreatown North would be more accurate.
You know what? Ironically, the polarization still works. Yeah, we have North and we have South. It's the same people divided by two different geographies. But this Koreatown is a bit more current. The Koreatown that I live in is more of a traditional Korea from 1970, 1975, the culture that created the restaurants that are still there. Here, we're seeing a lot more Koreans coming recently from Korea in the last potentially 5 to 10 years. And they've also brought their kind of version of updated Korean cuisine. So Daldonghae, which is the restaurant that we're at right now, really kind of specializes in what they call Seoul style or big city style barbecue.
And what do we have here, John?
That's called mulnaengmyeon, and it's a North Korean specialty. It's actually cold noodles, and there's actually shaved ice inside the actual noodle. And before air conditioning or other technological conveniences, this is what people ate traditionally to counteract the heat in the course of the day, because if you're working in the fields or in any kind of job, you need to eat, and if it's so hot, people have a hard time keeping food down. So this dish has become very popular, not just in the north, but also in the south, where summertime and warm weather can be brutal. I mean, there are hot periods that really kind of defy any kind of mobility, but if you have a bowl of cold noodles, it'll actually cool you down. So yeah, a lot of the different flavors that we see here in this particular restaurant are kind of elements of historical parts of Korea, but you know, in Seoul, like any big city, we like to have everything all at once, no matter where it comes from.
And how do you say the name of the restaurant again?
It's called Daldonghae.
Okay, 감사합니다.
Chummaneo.
Now we're at Don't Yell at Me, which is what John tells me, a Korean coffee shop.
More of a Korean Asian version of a coffee shop. That's right. Yeah, you got it.
Well, don't yell at me for not quite getting it right. But what makes this a Korean-style coffee shop?
Well, this is more like a bubble tea / coffee shop, and both are super popular right now all over Asia, not just in Korea. But Koreans have really taken to kind of a higher level of coffee culture. What that means is Korea and coffee, it used to be the worst relationship. I mean, their idea of coffee was Nescafe or instant coffee. It dominated Korean culture. And then as generations improved their coffee culture, even in the US, obviously, and in North America and Canada as well, we've now seen kind of a new coffee culture. The hipster coffee phenomenon has taken on its own kind of influence in Korea and in Asian culture. So they're not ordering sort of terribly weak, watered down coffee anymore. They're looking for a little bit more of what I would say is dominant in Asia, but also dominant in Europe. There's bubble tea is now booming all over the world now, not just in Taiwan and in Asian countries. So yeah, Asian style coffee shops, Korea especially, have now dominated with a much stronger version of espresso style coffee drinks, and they blend it in their own ways. So they'll use things like coconut milk, they'll blend in tapioca, there'll be, you know, more of a dessert style coffee option.
Like toffee nut.
Exactly, like toffee nut or caramel swirls or all these different things. So I would say, you know, complete speculation on my part, but definitely coffee chains like Starbucks have helped really influence that part of coffee culture. We've seen a lot of Western chains going into Asia, but now the opposite. Asian coffee chains are coming into North America, Canada, as well as America or the United States. So there's kind of, I call it the chickens coming home to roost. As soon as North America or Western culture kind of promotes an idea, Asian cultures are very keen to kind of jump on it and see what they can sort of add in terms of their own flavor, pun intended.
Okay, so this street we're on, this stretch of Yonge Street, it's part of the 56 kilometers.
Longer than 56 kilometers. But yeah, the longest street in the world. We have the distinction in Toronto of having the longest continuous single street under one name. And it turns into a small dirt rural road at the end of it. But the reason Yonge Street dominates was because, like major cities and major streets all over the world, it was the #1 infrastructure route for the longest time. So everything that came in on the water, which is Lake Ontario, which is where Yonge Street starts, would then be shipped north and then distributed out to the different parts of the province or territory. And that's why Yonge Street still continues to be the longest continuous street in the world.
And the chains on this stretch of Yonge Street, you said a lot of these are coming from Korea
and China as well, too.
Other Asian countries.
That's right. They're dominating this area. And the difference is the downtown core, kind of like, as a reference, the Lower East Side of Manhattan, where there was a lot of immigrant influx and blending of cultures. You have that here in Toronto, but then these were the original immigrants, the poor, the disheveled, the unwanted, the famous poem on the side of the Statue of Liberty, right? Give us your poor, your people, earning to breathe free. So that wave of immigration is still there. The poor people all over the world are, trying to flee persecution and are refugees. But the group that comes here now to North America, especially in this part of the city, are all coming over with money. There's definitely an affluent generation of immigrants coming over who are educated, who have skills, trades, and resources, and can do things like entrepreneurship. And for a lot of new immigrants, my family included, the job market isn't as open as it would be. So sometimes the only option for economic growth is entrepreneurship or owning a business. And a lot of people will struggle with different, commercial activities, but restaurants and bars and food and beverage in general is generally an easier entry level in terms of entrepreneurship. In this area, you're getting very well established chains, people that have already built a business model, that are already looking to expand and will open multiple locations. So a lot of the locations you see here will start here, like the restaurant we just ate at, and then we'll branch out and open multiple locations of the city. Daldong, the restaurant we just ate at, they just took over a massive complex in one of the outer boroughs in Mississauga, and it looks like a small Korean village. That's how big the space is. It's an entire city block with parking, ample parking obviously, and more importantly, a massive restaurant dining room.
Now, speaking of parking, this looks a little more car friendly, but you could take the one line to North York. It's the next to the last stop.
Toronto is a very accessible city in terms of public transport, and I tell this to everybody who comes here. We don't have a very complex system. A lot of it is still buses or what they call ground transportation, but the underground that we have, the subway, will connect you to the furthest east, west, north, and southern point of the city. That means that we technically have 2 major lines and then 2 minor lines. We have a secondary line that runs east-west, and then we have another line that kind of runs north-south. So there's actually no problem getting to any place in Toronto. Obviously, the distance is faster if you have a car or, let's say, personalized transport. But no, there's nothing you can't get to in the city of Toronto, that is not accessible by public transport. But Yonge Street, if you were to do just this street, you would need days to do it all.
Yes, and I just want to kind of amplify what John just said. From my hotel downtown, Google Maps told me 3 minutes longer with the car. So I made it from downtown to this station in about 30 minutes. So yeah, easy to get to. Okay, so one more question. Are you partial towards Koreatown North or the other Koreatown?
It depends what I'm looking for. Okay. I've always said Toronto is a city of destinations. So if I want a certain kind of food, I'm very much about the food, and I will travel for certain foods. I'll come up here if I'm looking for more of a regionally specific style of food or something specific that a restaurant will serve or specialize in. But in my neighborhood, I've got my favorites. I've got my cheap and cheerful, I want a quick something to eat. I have I have friends coming to visit, let's go to a fun place. I have my, I'm so hungry right now and I want to eat everything on the menu kind of place. So it depends on my mood, but yeah, what do I prefer? Obviously what's closest to my house, but in terms of If I have a craving and it's specific, I'll go, especially if it's a rare thing that you don't find in a lot of Korean restaurants, then I'll definitely come up here. But the other part about this neighborhood that's great is that there's always new places opening. Well, that means somebody from Korea has decided to fill a certain niche that nobody else is doing. So they're like, I'm gonna specialize in that one thing. So where before Korean restaurants had to kind of do everything to kind of please everybody, now there's actually restaurants that only specialize in certain things.
Okay, great. Thanks, John.
No worries.
Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe. I got more Toronto videos going to be coming out soon. I got San Antonio, Texas, Jacksonville, Florida. Got some other trips. I'm heading back out to the West Coast hopefully soon. Thank you very much for watching.